Danielle Dalton is a junior in the Carroll School of Management studying marketing. After competing in last year's Boston College Venture Competition and launching a successful Indiegogo campaign, she founded Molly Miller, a women's clothing and accessories company that donates a portion of all profits to organizations that promote a positive body image. In addition to entrepreneurship, Danielle enjoys ballet, writing, and spending time with her friends. So without further ado, here's Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I'm here to talk to you today about the overlooked power of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to manage your own emotions and then monitor those of others. And I got introduced to it in the form of entrepreneurship, and I feel like entrepreneur is sometimes a buzzword that isn't really properly explained or isn't always clear what the definition is. And so an entrepreneur is someone who simply turns an idea into reality. There's a lot of other background stuff that goes on, but at its base, it's just someone who turns an idea into reality. So I want to introduce you to a few entrepreneurs. The first two are Jennifer and Jennifer of Rent the Runway. Rent the Runway is a really interesting company. You can go online and select a dress for a certain special occasion that you're going to, and then they'll send it to you on that day. And it's a lot cheaper than going out and buying a dress that you probably only wear once or twice, so you can save some money on that. But also they have over 65,000 dresses, which means that they take care of all the in-house dry cleaning and repairs and alterations, which makes them the nation's largest dry cleaner. So they're really an interesting company, and because they're so successful and people equate them to Netflix, they're growing and expanding a lot. And I could go on forever about them, but just to introduce you to some other entrepreneurs, we also have the individuals behind Warby Parker. So the four people, they created Warby Parker, which started as an online-only business model where you could go and get prescription glasses from the online store, and then they'd mail them to your house. And for every pair you bought, they'd donate a pair to someone in need. They've since expanded rapidly, and they now actually have a few locations in town. So there's actually one above Georgetown Cupcakes on Newbury Street, if you're ever there. But another entrepreneur is Arianna Huffington of the Huffington Post. And so the Huffington Post was founded in the midst of the is the newspaper dying debate. People didn't know what was going to happen to news and how it would be consumed. So they created one of the first online media platforms for news to be shared. And last year, they actually won their first Pulitzer Prize, so they've become very successful in their own sphere as well. Then there's Yvonne Xuan of Patagonia. He's an avid outdoorsman. He fishes, he loves to rock climb, very outdoorsy. But then he founded Patagonia, the clothing company. They also make equipment and gear for people. And because he loves the outdoors so much, he made the company so that it would embody all his values. So a lot of Patagonia's materials are sustainably sourced and produced, and they play a really big role in conservation efforts around the world. So that's really a company that embodies all his values. And lastly, we have Mindy Kaling of the Mindy Project. You might also recognize her from The Office, but right now her main project is the Mindy Project. She also wrote a book and is now working on her second book. And she's someone who's been really vocal about how she got to where she is today. And so by many standards, we would consider these people as individuals who have, quote, made it. And so although there are many ways to define success, and there are a lot of different meaningful ways, in this term, or in this context, success means achieving a certain level of professional success. And so researchers became interested in what makes certain entrepreneurs successful. Is it your IQ? Is it your personality? Is it something else? Do you start as the little kid with your lemonade stand and then go on to have your multi-billion-dollar CEO type of company thing? What is it that makes people successful? So they've looked at IQ first. IQ is your intelligence quotient, and that you can think of intelligence as your ability to learn, and being smart as how smart you are. And so they looked at the IQ of people across many different backgrounds and industries, and they found that although some people who were really successful had a high IQ, people with relatively average IQs were able to outperform those with high IQs 70% of the time. So it wasn't the differentiating factor among individuals and their success level. So then they turn to personality. And you might be familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality test, which breaks people down into 16 different personality types based on attributes like extroversion versus introversion, thinking versus feeling. So they looked at the personality of a lot of different people from different backgrounds, and it turns out that you can have any personality and be successful, which is good news. But also the only difference was that if you're introverted or if you're extroverted, you might just have to play to your strengths differently, but there's no inherent advantage over being introverted compared to being extroverted or vice versa. So then they thought there must be something else that leads to people's success, and that's emotional intelligence. Shocking, I know, given the title of this talk. But emotional intelligence, like I said, is the ability to manage your own emotions and then monitor or be aware of those of others. And it's made up of 5 parts. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize your emotions. So if you're deciding between moving to Chicago or Boston, you probably have like feelings about where you want to move and why. Self-awareness is just recognizing those feelings. Self-regulation, on the other hand, is managing your emotions. So there's a difference between saying I'm angry and being mad at the world all day, and then saying I'm angry because, and understanding why you're upset. So that falls under self-regulation. Motivation in this sense deals more with your internal motivation and how you use your emotions to move yourself forward. I think the best example of this would be like an Olympic athlete. They have to have a high sense of internal motivation to train for all those years before they actually get to the stage. It's not an instantaneous external reward. Then there's empathy. Empathy is your ability to relate to other people and understand their emotions. So if you've had a long day and you have to go talk to a friend about how you feel and you're really stressed or something, that friend might not have been through the exact same situation as you or the exact same series of events, but they can still understand and put themselves in your place and give you advice. And that's because they're empathetic, they can relate to you. Lastly, social skill. You can think of that as people skills. Person with high social skills is really outwardly friendly and able to easily relate to other people. And all 5 of these make up emotional intelligence, and you can't really have one without the other because they're all interwoven and interrelated. So you want to be well balanced in all of them. The benefits of having emotional intelligence are that on average people say that they're happier, they have better friendships and relationships, they feel more fulfilled by how they spend their time, and people who have really high emotional intelligence on average make $29,000 more per year. So there's a lot of different benefits, and like many things in life, there's of course a catch, and there's a catch here too, but it's a good catch. So while personality and IQ are largely the same or stagnant over the course of your lifetime, your personality might change a little bit, your emotional intelligence is actually something you can change. And you probably already knew that because we call it maturity. When you're a young kid and something doesn't go your way, you throw a tantrum. When you're an adult and something doesn't go your way, you reason through it, you think about how things go, and then hopefully don't throw as many tantrums. And so we already have a baseline level of emotional intelligence, and so you already have some to begin with, which is good news, but you can do even more things to further improve it to get the benefits of it. And the reason that it comes up under entrepreneurship a lot is because there's companies that are taking advantage of it. So Facebook, for example, has an empathy lab. And so what they do is they give developers who are making apps or services for people in the developing world access to phones that operate as if they were on a 2G network or configured differently so that they can be empathetic towards their end users and design better products for them. Google has a lot of different perks. You've probably heard of them. They have like nap pods, they have volleyball courts in the middle of their office, things like that. But one of the perks is that they offer a ton of free classes for people, and one of those is a really popular course on emotional intelligence. Now you're probably thinking, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, and this is irrelevant, but it's not just something that is in a 9-to-5 workplace. You don't have to like go into some garage and like code away on an app. Like you don't need to do that. You can come like back into the house, it's okay. And so I want to introduce you to this concept of entrepreneur of self. So entrepreneur of self means what is like your own mission statement. And I don't mean that in a personal branding like marketing kind of way, but more who you are as a person. And turning the ideas you have about yourself into reality is a form of entrepreneurship, and it's really relevant. So a few weeks ago, I shared on my own Facebook page why I was giving this talk, and I talked about how it's so easy to get caught up in like grades or internships or majors and everything like that. And people, commented saying they felt the same way, or they would come up and talk to me, and I was really surprised because we never really talk about that as much. But it's not just a BC bubble kind of thing, it's actually a cultural thing. So to get into college, you probably took the SAT, which measures one kind of aptitude. People now say, it's more holistic and representative of, multiple measures of intelligence, but it's safe to say like everyone here is much more than their SAT score. At the same time, besides SAT, on your resume, you probably put your GPA or your major or some other academic measurement But you probably don't put like really great listener if you're having a bad day, will supply warm chocolate chip cookies if situation is especially dire. Yeah, no, that doesn't tend to make it on people's resumes, but that's what really counts, because at the end of the day, you'd rather be with like a great friend than whoever happens to be the best at solving a problem set. Not that that's a bad skill, that's another just type of skill. And so in America, there's this general kind of distance between the types of measures we place a priority on and what tends to matter. So like the literacy rate is 99%, although it does vary among different demographics according to advocacy organizations. But researchers who are studying emotional intelligence measure a slightly different feature called emotional literacy, and that is reported to be lower than 40%. So there's a big difference. And so we teach people how to read and write, but we don't teach them how to process their emotions. That's a pretty big, audacious goal to change, especially on a Sunday night when people have like 1,000,001 group projects and your next block of free time is probably somewhere in 2017. So you can do 3 simple things that will make a big difference in your own emotional intelligence now. The first one is just to be yourself. People say to take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way, which is really valuable advice. If you ever get the chance to do something you really love, you should definitely go for it. But it's just as powerful to say no to certain situations as it is to say yes to situations. So you should always feel like you can take advantage of opportunities that really matter and that you actually care about, and not just feel obligated to do certain things. So that's something to keep in mind, because if you're not yourself, it's just not going to work out anyways. The second one is make time to think, which sounds really simple, but it's really important. And sometimes you get to class early, you have those 3 to 5 like awkward minutes or whatever, and you kind of go through that snap story of that person you sort of know from 3 years ago. And you want to then maybe think maybe just take that time to think about how things are going. Maybe you're like thinking about your major or your extracurricular activities. Oh, sorry, too fast, there's a button on the back. And instead of going and thinking about the snap story, if you get caught up in thinking about how things are actually going, that's better, because it's so easy to get caught up in the BC bubble and realize eventually, like one day when you take a step back, that maybe you aren't as happy on a certain path as you thought you would be, or you thought it would be different. And so just taking time to think about how you feel like things is really important. The last one is you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, so you want to make them count. This is something that researchers say a lot, because the people you surround yourself with actually play a really big role in your life. And to put this in perspective in terms of BC, if you're a senior or if you're a rising senior, you may live in a group of 6 people, so that's you and 5 other people. You want to surround yourself with people who make you a better person and who bring out the best in you, not people who bring you down. A lot of times people think that stepping away from friendships that aren't the best for you is mean or selfish, and that's not the case. It just means that you respect yourself enough to know that you deserve people who make you a better person, and you want to do that for other people too. There's nothing worse than being hurt by someone you thought you could trust and was a good friend than denying it and allowing it to continue to happen. So surround yourself with good people, because it will make your time here a lot more enjoyable. Then lastly, is to give yourself a chance. There's this researcher, Meg Jay, she gave a different TED Talk, which is available online, that says by the time you're 35, you've made 80% of the decisions that affect the rest of your life that are major, which is really alarming, because 35 is young and 80% is a big number, but she's talking about decisions that play out in terms of where you live, or what type of job you take, or what type of path you set yourself on, because those then compound and propel you forward. Who you surround yourself with, things like that. So there's still lots of other decisions to go forward, so don't panic. But these ones do play a difference. And so the point of the talk isn't to say, do these 5 things and you'll be happy, and this is good, or these are the good majors and these aren't, or be involved in these activities but not these, but instead to say, you have to think about what's important to you and what matters to you as an individual, and it won't be the same for the person who's sitting right next to you. It's really individualized. And although it's easy to get caught up in everything that's going on at BC, it's really important to think about this, because it does matter, and it is important to you, and it's okay to care about things that matter to you. So if anything, I just hope that my talk is the beginning of a conversation for you and your close friends, but that's really all I have to say tonight, so thank you for listening.